Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. So, guys, we see today is a day of protests. As we're going to see, there are protests going on in so many different places. It's becoming a true global phenomenon. Right here, you have Sputnik News and watch Palestinian March of Return rocks Gaza on protests first anniversary. So the organizers of the Palestinian protests, dubbed the Great March of Return, plan to mark the first anniversary along the borders of the Gaza Strip on Saturday with large-scale rallies. The Israeli military reported they had completed preparations for Saturday's events, reinforcing the southern district with forces and equipment. And so, when you look at the numbers, I feel so bad, honestly, for the Palestinian people. For 71 years now, you know, they've been basically, kicked off their homeland. And, we could get into the details, and some believe that it was, the Israeli people's homeland, and, going back 2,000 years earlier, well, 1,900 years earlier. 1,900 years is a long period of time, is it not? That's a long period of time. And, we've covered this before. We talked about how in 1871, Albert Pike, who was a Freemason and an insider into the affairs of those powers that be, said that there was going to be 3 world wars. And he also said that, Israel was going to have to happen in order to make the circumstances for the Third World War take place. And so, from Pike's point of view, this is part of the plan of those powers that be. And, if you look at, since the last year, there's been 195 civilians, Palestinian civilians, killed in protests to basically 1 Israeli soldier. So do those numbers basically give you the impression that people are being restrained and, not being overly aggressive with putting down these type of protests? And shouldn't people be able to protest? And, it's just a bad situation, but this is how we are divided. This is part of the big plan on keeping people divided. Keeping people divided, just as I always go back to the old Bible story of the Tower of Babel, and where the gods say, and it's originally plural, come, look at humanity, look at mankind, they are all of one single mind, and they are building themselves a tower up to the heavens. They will make a name for themselves. They will make a Shem. And come, let us go down there and let us disperse them all over the globe. And so, that's how it is written, and it originally is plural, no matter what people want to try to do and to change it and use revision. But we see originally it was plural. The Elohim, or the Anunnaki, if we look at the Sumerian legends, and we see the same things going on. This divisiveness has never stopped, and this is just another example of it as we see this Great March of Return, and the Gaza protests. And somehow, of course, there's never been a solution, and honestly, it doesn't feel like we're any closer to a solution when it comes to that than we were, yesterday, a year ago, 10 years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago. There's really no progress that you could really see. And we have protests against Sudan's al-Bashi regime entering the 4th month. And, you just got to wonder, when the vast majority of the population doesn't want somebody in power anymore, why do people stay in power? Ego, greed. What else is there? Many of them probably do think, but that they are, the only person that could fix the situation, but that's just ego going. That is nothing more than ego. And ego leads to so much suffering. And this is on a different par, but I just wanted to stick this in there. There's protests going on in Connecticut, and I came from Connecticut, and I lived in Milford, where there was the site at the Milford-Stratford tolls of a really bad accident that took lives. And actually, the house that I bought and lived in for 17 years, there were 2 children that were killed when a truck didn't realize there was standing traffic around the corner and rammed into a bunch of cars and killed 2 little kids that lived in the house that I bought later on. And, you know, it was a sad situation, and it took the tolls down all across the state. And now they're looking to put the tolls up again. And, you know, this is a state that is taxed to death, and they're looking for more revenue, as it is one of the most expensive states to live in. And when I moved from Connecticut, and there's the olive tree, when I moved from Connecticut to South Carolina, I paid 1/10 of the taxes that I was paying for a house twice the size of what I was paying in Connecticut. And so, you know, here people are protesting putting the tolls back up. They might cost lives again. But again, when it comes to money, it's just a very sad situation. And of course, there's protests going on against Brexit. And some of these are going on in border countries. And so the demonstrations have been held in different areas in the Irish border counties today. The Border Communities Against Brexit group organized today's demonstrations. They say they are angry given the continued uncertainty over the UK's exit from the EU. So the demonstrations have been held at 6 locations in counties Louth, Fermanagh, Cavan, Monaghan, Tyrone, and Donegal. And so, you know, we see protests there, and we have Brexit protests going on in London as well. Pro-Brexit Yellow Vest supporters descend on Parliament Square for second day. And can you imagine if there is no Brexit and the will of the people is just thrown out? What's it going to look like? What do you guys think that's going to look like? How much are people going to be ticked off? Wow, look who's there. I didn't know he was there. Did you see that he was there? So, looks like a lot of turnout. Whitehall partially blocked. Five people were arrested in the march. So that is an interesting situation to watch. And we have Algerians marching against the president for the 6th week. And they took to the streets by the millions for the 6th straight Friday, nationwide protests, trying to push their ailing president from power and bring down an entire political system seen as corrupt and out of touch. How many governments do you think are corrupt and got out of touch around the globe right now? How many? What percentage do you think? What percentage do you think that the citizens of the world are just completely happy with? And then what percent do you think would be looking for change, for almost any change? And that's when things get dangerous, when you're looking for almost any change. And so we have the Yellow Vest protest, staged the 20th week of protests, as the banks are calling for an end of the violence. And there was actually bans now in certain hotspots areas as well. Police struggled the previous weekend to contain violence by highly organized demonstrators who smashed shop windows and set fire to newspaper kiosks and banks in the capital. And so local authorities today declared iconic sites such as the Champs-Élysées Avenue in Paris and the center of Bordeaux in southwestern France off limits to demonstrations. And so the presidential Élysée Palace and the National Assembly were also cordoned off by police. President Emmanuel Macron has reacted to the ongoing protests, which began last November by embarking on a cross-country tour as part of the great national debate aimed at encouraging disgruntled citizens to express themselves through a structured dialogue. And it's 20 weeks now. And of course, most people recognize that Macron is really a puppet of that one particular family that begins with an R. It's a very famous name and ends in something that reminds you of kids. Yeah, it begins with an R, ends with something that reminds you of kids. And he's definitely comes from a banking background and was groomed for this position. Another actor is what we have there. Another actor, another puppet. That's exactly what you're seeing. And people are waking up. People are totally waking up and understanding the bigger picture in droves. And they're frustrated. As we see this again, the banks saying, please, no mas, no mas. Do you remember Roberto Duran? Do you remember that fight against Sugar Ray Leonard? No mas, no mas. Well, that's what the banks are saying, no mas. And we see the LOS flooding the streets of France for the 20th week in a row. And of course, every week they say the numbers are dwindling, but somehow it doesn't seem like that case. It really doesn't. And you can watch live right here. I was just watching. I don't know. The numbers don't look like they're dwindling to me. I don't see it. And last weekend there was lots of skirmishes. So, is it wishful thinking on the parts of the powers that be? That very well is probably the case. So, my friends, as always, like, share, subscribe. I look forward to your comments. Please share what you are seeing, thinking, and feeling. And thank you for supporting the backup channel, Evolutionary Energy Arts #2. As always, my friends, stay safe, God bless, and namaste.